So I'm really upset that this snuck through my radar. Kamala Harris did her first solo interview with this ABC Philadelphia Channel 6. And it totally snuck under the radar because you can see that this came out on Friday last week. And I'm sure nobody's paying attention to Friday news. So this was probably deliberately put on this date because it would fly under the radar. Because I saw nothing on this. I didn't see it in my Twitter feed. I didn't see anything until I was looking at my YouTube channel and I saw in the sidebar people reacting to this interview, and I was like, oh, I totally missed that. So let's see how she fares in a solo interview, because this is what I've been curious about for a while, because she tends to have difficulty with that. But admittedly, she's probably prepped very well by this point. So I'd imagine she says the exact same talking points she's said since the DNC. It's what I'd expect. Because even during the debate with Trump, a lot of the things she talked about were basically the same talking points. And then she had a few quips at Trump, which I'm sure a lot of those were pre-prepared. But anyway, let's go.
All good?
Okay.
Oh, whoops, I haven't switched my audio to headphones. Let me do that because I don't want it to double. Okay, I'm switched. Let's go. Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Good. Awesome.
I'm not a
Madam
double
Vice
speak.
President,
Yeah, I'm not.
Pleasure to meet you. Thanks for
Good
your
to
time
meet you,
today.
Brian.
Our audience appreciates your time as
Of
well.
course.
As you know,
You can tell
we're
she's
sitting here on
nervous just
stage
from the.
and arguably in front of an audience that 54 days from now could decide the outcome of this presidential election.
Yeah.
You hear it more than I do. People want to know more about you and about your specific plans. At the debate the other night, you talked about creating an opportunity economy. I wonder if we could drill down on that a little bit. When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you
This is
have
a good question.
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I
She's
was
told this
19.
story before.
I grew
Is
up
she
in a
gonna
community
divert
of
the
hardworking
question?
people.
She's
Nurses,
She's
hospital
avoiding the
workers,
question.
nurses
Okay,
and
got it.
teachers
Great,
and
amazing.
I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, but a lot of people will relate to this. I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn, and I was raised to believe and to know that all people deserve dignity, and that we as Americans have a beautiful character. We have ambitions and aspirations and dreams, but not everyone necessarily has access to the resources that can help them fuel those dreams and ambitions. So when I talk about building an
Okay,
opportunity,
those are all true
it is
statements. Just
very
answer the
much
question.
of the mind of investing in the ambitions and aspirations and the
But
incredible
how
work
do you
ethic
do
of
that?
American people.
What
Including
policy allows them
for
to do
people,
that?
For example, to start a small business.
Sure.
My mother, worked long hours, and our neighbor helped raise us. We used to call her, I still call her, our second mother. She was a small business owner.
Because she has said loans for small businesses
I learned
before.
there
But she's not mentioning that here.
And she was a community leader. She hired locally. She mentored. Our small businesses are so much a part of the fabric of our communities.
Those are all true statements.
Really, I think the backbone of America's economy. So my opportunity economy plan includes giving startups a $50,000 tax deduction
Okay, there we go.
to start their small business. It used to be $5,000. Nobody can start.
10x? That's pretty good. 50K is a lot of money to start a business.
Innovative ideas and giving them the ability to go for it. Opportunity economy means, look, we don't have enough housing in America. We have a housing supply shortage.
Okay, here we go.
And
That's
what
a good.
that means, in particular,
good thing to
for
talk
the
about.
Younger Americans, the
Very
American
important.
dream is elusive. It's just actually.
I talk to so many people my age who are less fortunate than me. They don't work as engineers. They don't have a six-figure salary, and they talk about wanting to buy homes, and that opportunity just seems like it's not there, or what they have to do to scrape by, and all those sorts of things. So this is very important issue. I literally work with the YIMBY movement in my local area, and they're endorsing certain candidates that are doing major housing policy. A lot of the housing policy is around deregulating and changing zoning laws such that you can actually build more stuff, because a lot of the issue is that you can't build things. So how much can the Harris administration or in the executive branch in general deal with that problem? It's kind of debatable. But there are some plans from the Biden administration to try to make getting homes easier, but that's more about like, oh, giving loans to first time home buyers and that sort of thing. But that doesn't help with the supply issue. That only helps with the demand. So I don't know what a president can do with the demand. What a president can do with the supply side of the issue. I think housing is fundamentally a local issue for a lot of this, because it's like, New York City has a housing problem. Ohio does not have a housing problem.
Not attainable. So part of my plan is to work with the private sector and housing developers to give them a tax credit, to be able to partner with us as the government to build in my...
Oh, sorry, I didn't listen to that.
So part of my plan is to work with the private sector and housing developers to give them a tax credit, to be able to partner with us as the government to build, and my goal is 3 million new homes by the end of my first term. In addition,
I'd want to know more of the details of that. That sounds good on paper, because one of the issues is that the startup cost just to get stuff built is high. But that's not actually solving the fundamental problem. It's just giving you money such that you can push through those startup costs. But the reason why the startup costs are so high is because you have to go through so many barriers of regulation before you're even approved to make the house. So it's like, okay, how are we going to deal with the permitting process? I don't know what the federal government can do about that, though. So, yeah, devil's in the details there. Because just giving more money, that might just inflate the price even more to make developments. So it just doesn't actually solve the problem.
To help people who just want to get their foot in the door, literally. And so giving first-time home buyers a $25,000 down payment assistance.
We already talked about this and the issues with that.
But
even though it would cause an issue with like increased demand, it's kind of a marginal increase in demand, but it does increase demand, but it's a marginal increase.
To save and to pay that mortgage and to build wealth for themselves and their family. These are some examples of what I mean when I talk about an opportunity economy, and a lot of it has to do with just the community I was raised in and the people that I admired, who work hard, and deserve to have, their dreams fulfilled because they're prepared to work for it.
Oh, she didn't say anything new. She just had like more flowery language around the policies that she's already talked about before. So this is just another way to talk about that. So there's that.
And at previous appearances about turning the page on the...
And obviously, I think these things have to get through Congress, because the executive branch can't just give money directly. I don't think that's a thing. I think you need a bill through Congress. So it's a matter of like, okay, if you get a Democratic House, Democratic Senate, Democratic President, then you can get some of these things through. You would hope that housing's a bipartisan issue, but I don't know.
And in fact, here today in Johnstown, you're talking about a new way forward.
Yeah.
I think some people have a question, given maybe your current role as Vice President of the United States, how different you are from Joe Biden. And so I wonder if there are one or two spots.
I honestly don't think that there's actually a major difference between the Biden administration and what will become the Harris administration. I do think that this is effectively a continuation of the Biden administration. But I don't actually think that there were problems with the Biden administration. I think that they did a lot of things to ramp up our industrial base, transition to green energy, and they are starting to make some moves on these housing related things. So that's not actually a bad thing that she's not that differentiated from Biden. It's only bad from like a perception standpoint, because people didn't like Biden. Biden had a really low approval rating. I think I was just in Atlanta and we went to the Carter Center, and it went over like the detail of Carter's first term and all that sort of thing. But it seems like everything that Jimmy Carter did wasn't like bad. He got peace between Egypt and Israel, and increased in our efficiency with energy use and all these other things. So I think Jimmy Carter did really well in his administration, but there's like two sides of the presidency. It's not just about what you do policy wise. It's also about how you look to the people. So I think Biden is another case of like this Jimmy Carter thing, where it's like first term president or only one term president. Everybody thinks you did jack shit, but you actually did very well, or your administration did, not you yourself. I don't know what decisions Biden actually makes. I think he made the decision to get out of Afghanistan. I absolutely think that was a personal decision of his, and that was very good. I don't know if there's another president that could have done that.
Areas or approaches where you would say, I'm a different person?
Well, I'm obviously not Joe Biden. And, you know, I offer a new generation of leadership. And so, for example, thinking about developing and creating an opportunity economy where it's about investing in areas that really need a lot of work, and maybe focusing on, again, the aspirations and the dreams, but also just recognizing that at this moment in time, some of the stuff we could take for granted years ago, we can't take for granted anymore. For example, another plan that I have that is a new approach is to expand the child tax credit to $6,000 for...
I don't know if that's a new approach, though, because the Biden administration was the first one to do the child tax credit. And then I think it got struck down by, like, Joe Manchin in the Senate. It was something like, it was with one of these omnibus spending bills, and that got cut out, extending the child tax credit. But it hurt directionally. That's not really new. That's just like, oh, okay, we're going to make it a thing that's official and also increase the amount. But when you're considering like inflation rate, then increasing the amount, I don't know how much increasing the amount actually matters. But yeah, I don't think that's a market difference from the Biden administration, to be clear. I really feel like a lot of this is like things that couldn't previously be done in Build Back Better. We're going to try again to get some of this Build Back Better stuff, or more of the plan in Build Back Better in. But, you know, most people don't pay attention to policy, so it's a non-issue here.
Of their child's life, because that is obviously a very critical stage of development of a child. And a lot of young parents need the help to buy a car seat or a crib or clothes for their kids. And so my approach is about new ideas, new policies that are directed at the current moment. And also, to be very honest with you, my focus is very much in what we need to do over the next 10, 20 years to catch up to the 21st century around, again, capacity, but also challenges.
Crime.
It's like a vague answer. That doesn't really tell you much about differentiating from Biden, but, you know.
Philadelphia as well, where crime is a significant issue. When we talk about crime, the conversation turns to gun safety as well. And I think you actually probably caught a lot of people off guard, maybe a bit by surprise in the debate the other night when you mentioned that you are a gun owner. I know you said it in 2019 as well. I want to talk about your values on this issue. When it comes to gun ownership, where do you draw the line in America on gun ownership and gun use?
Well, like you said, Brian, I am a gun owner, and Tim Walz, my running mate, is also a gun owner. We're not taking anybody's guns away. I support the Second Amendment, and I support reasonable gun safety laws.
There's no way to thread the line on this. You basically have to say
I was a
that.
prosecutor for most of my career. I have personally prosecuted homicide cases. I have personally looked at autopsies. I have personally seen what assault weapons do to the human body. And so I feel very strongly that it is consistent with the Second Amendment and your right to own a gun to also say we need an assault weapons ban. They're literally tools of war. They were literally designed to kill.
I don't agree with that argument at all, because all guns kill people. So, you know, there's not really. I understand the argument is that you want it to be less easy to kill people with guns, or something like that. But, you know, the Second Amendment's the Second Amendment. It doesn't really say anything specific about what type of gun, what types of arms you're allowed to own, not own, those sorts of things. But it's a matter of like, okay, if we're being practical about things, the practical solution is something like everybody has to get well trained and regularly trained with their firearms and regularly know what the ethics around their firearms are and all that sort of thing. Because I think it's more of a cultural education thing than it is about the actual weapons being used per se.
A lot of human beings quickly. I say we need universal background checks. The majority of NRA members support that. Why? Because
nothing against background checks. That just makes sense.
Want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon, if they've been found by a court to be a danger to themselves or others. You just might want to know.
2 final questions, if I might.
Sure.
On the appeal of the man you were running against, as you drove here today, you likely saw a lot of Trump signs. Mm-hmm. He has an historic appeal in this country. And as you are someone running against him and trying to understand that, I wonder how you distill it. What do you understand his appeal to be? And how do you speak to his voters? Or maybe people who just share his...
That's a good question. Honest to God, making you forced to be like, hey, there's this contingent of people that don't agree with you at all, support Trump. How do you reach those people? I don't think you actually do, to be fair, because we're so tribal now that I don't actually think you can reach them, or reach them at scale. You can probably reach individuals, but at scale, probably not. So that's not the way you're going to win this election, by convincing Trumpists to go to your side.
Values, but are open to something else.
I, based on experience and a lived experience, no. In my heart, I know, in my soul, I know that the vast majority of us as Americans have so much more in common than what separates us.
That is true.
And I also believe that I am accurate in knowing that most Americans want a leader who brings us together as Americans. And not...
I don't know if that's true. Honestly, I do think that a lot of motivation on the right is a politics of being anti-something. So, you know, being anti-woke, being anti-immigration, being anti... Like, they're fighting against something. So, I don't know if I agree with that.
Who professes to be a leader who is trying to have us point our fingers at each other.
You'd like that to be the case, though. Like,
you know,
they want us to come together.
To be honest with you, I think people want a leader who has common sense and tries to find common ground. I'm supported by over 200 Republicans who worked for both presidents.
MAGA would literally just say that those are rhinos. Republicans in name only. Like, there's just not... Yeah, I really don't know how much of the appeal there is from this former Republican coalition in the Democratic Party now. I don't know how much that actually has any effect, other than Democrats feeling good about themselves because they're like, look, we're not the crazy people. Look at us. We're so cool. But that's like people who are already going to vote Democrat anyway, so I don't care about those people. I care about the people that are independents or people that could be swayed potentially.
Bush, John McCain, Mitt Romney. I'm supported by the former Vice President Dick Cheney, former Congress member Liz Cheney.
Again, doesn't matter. I don't think to a MAGA
are more
person.
Willing now, in light of the hate and division that we see coming out of Donald Trump, to say, hey, let's put country first. And I think that just makes us stronger and more healthy as a country. To say, look, we can all debate our differences around, you know, various policies, but let's stop with the division. Like, enough of that. Let's bring everybody together.
And finally, as you introduce yourself to America in a new way, they've heard much of your story at the Democratic National Convention and in that debate earlier this week. If there's one thing that you wish Americans knew about who Kamala Harris is that you don't think they know yet, what would that be?
It's an okay question. It's very vague.
It's not very different from anybody watching right now. I love my family.
No, these are some generic questions. No, that's such a generic answer. Who doesn't love their family?
I love to cook.
We've seen the TikTok videos of you cooking. We already know this.
My best friend from kindergarten is still my best friend. I think that, I mean, I have a career that really, and I said it the other day, you know, as a career prosecutor, I never asked a victim of crime were they a Republican or a Democrat. The only thing I ever ask them is, are you okay? And I think that's the approach that most Americans want, regardless of who they voted for in the last election, in terms of turning the page and charting the way forward.
I imagine you're looking forward to cooking Sunday dinner again.
I am looking forward. Yes, I am looking forward to cooking. With the whole family gets involved, the kids each have their role. Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful family, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, Brian.
So much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys.
If you don't mind, we're going to do a crew photo.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get anything new in any of these interviews. Like every public appearance she's ever had, it's mostly the same. And I honestly don't think it benefits her at all at this point to be more public, because you don't get anything new. And if you already like her, you're fine. You'll like her more. If you are more policy brained, you'll be just annoyed that she's not able to talk on that point. But maybe that doesn't matter. But I don't think if elections are purely based on vibes, then the vibes she has in these interviews is not as good as the vibes that she has when she's at a rally or doing a speech thing or doing something that's just non-combative. so I honestly do think she's better off with all these like TikTok campaigns and video. Like, I just don't. It's a question of like, how many boomers do you need to vote to? Because I don't know how much an older voting base would vote differently based on her ability to do interviews or not. Because I don't think young people care about that at all. Young people are just about the vibes. And you can get a lot of the vibe stuff from just doing social media. Your TikTok shorts, she could literally, I don't know, she should probably interview with people like Hassan Minhaj that would like give like the most softball thing ever, where you just learn more about her personality, and hopefully she comes off well and she's charismatic enough and all those sorts of things. Like, you know, where it'd be like your motherly energy of like, yeah, that's gonna be our president or something like that. I just don't know. Because traditional interviews like this, I'm wondering who this sways. And if it sways older voters against her, then there's just no benefit to doing them. And I know people will like pressure her to be like, she should interview more. But I don't know. I feel like every interview is potential for her to shoot herself in the foot. She got through this interview perfectly fine, and that makes me annoyed about looking at freaking like literally this freaking Sky News thumbnail right here, where it's like, oh look, she's doing word salads again, and I'm like, what are we talking about here? Was this from this? Oh, I don't even know if this was a reaction to the interview. I should check that before I spread misinformation. Let's see. What is this? I don't even know. No, this isn't her interview. Yeah, like these weren't word salads. Like she did have actual talking points and that sort of thing, but it always, for Kamala, things always go back to a pre-approved talking point where they went over this with her team. So she's like, as my fallback, I'm going to go back to this talking point. And that's an issue, because that means that means that every time we hear you, it gets stale. Like if I've heard you before, because I watched most of the stuff for Kamala at this point. So the message doesn't ring as well in these interview contexts versus that DNC speech. That DNC speech was very, like, love the energy, everything about that was great. But these interviews, she just doesn't come off as well in the interviews. And the talking points are the same, but it's a less good version of the talking points. So it's just like, I don't know. Anyway, that's where my thoughts are about this. I still think it's 50-50, still Kamala's to lose. Well, actually, it's really hard to tell now, because Trump has gotten so far in the conspiracy realm that it may be the case that people are like, okay, this guy might actually be too crazy to vote for at this point. I don't know. We actually might have further to go. Like, as soon as he said, I hate Taylor Swift this past Sunday, and the dogs eating the cats in the debate, like that becoming a thing, it's so hard to tell because I don't know what the median voter thinks about these two candidates, to be fair. So I'm just speculating like everybody else. So anyway, those are my thoughts on this interview. I know for sure they probably did this on a Friday just so that nobody was going to notice, but I saw it, wanted to react to it. So like if you like, dislike if you dislike, leave a comment letting me know why you like or dislike, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.